Previously, Yifi finds himself in a tight situation after coming to the cinema with both Yingying and Mengxin. We are left wondering if he would be found out. However, his uncle is somewhat trapped inside the box, which is now taken by a mysterious lady. Yifi's uncle, who had hidden himself inside a box of luggage, finally reaches a stop. The lady pushing around the luggage comes to a stop at the Flying Eagle Cinema. She then makes a call to someone talking about a package meant to be in the box of luggage. At this point, Yifi's uncle knows that if he stays any longer, he may end up not only being caught in the box, but also get caught naked in public. He weighs his options down and chooses to make a run for it. Yifi's uncle runs while using the box as cover. He ran so fast that the wind raised the skirts of young ladies nearby. He chooses not to look as this may slow him down. While running, Yifi's uncle nearly hits two girls who stood in the way, amazed by the sight of the moving box. Quickly, he jumps with the box still covering his nakedness. Yifi's uncle breathes a sigh of relief that he didn't hurt the girls. Back in the theaters, Yifi moves away from his sleeping wife Yingying to meet up with another lady, Mengxin, in the same theater. After a while, Mengxin excuses herself, saying that the theater is a bit too stuffy and that she wants to get some air. Mengxin exits the theater. Yifi then goes back to his Yingying, who at this point is still asleep. He checks up on Shanshan to see if she too is asleep, but receives a shocker. Shanshan had been awake since and was watching everything that went on between Yifi and Mengxin. Shanshan asks why Lifei is hiding that he had been cheating on Yingying. She also questions him about the piece of underwear she found in his suit, which didn't look like the one her sister Yingying wears. At this point, Yifi is left dumbfounded with nothing to sit on anymore. His heart starts to race as he notices that Yingying is about to wake from her sleep. Yifi instructs Shanshan to be quiet so she won't wake Yingying up. Shanshan exclaims that it will be a great timing for Yingying to wake up, so that she will be able to shame him for the cheat he is. Shanshan wants to show the underwear Yifi was keeping in his suit to her sister Yingying. Yifi begs and then cries out, saying that Shanshan should stop acting stubborn. Shanshan gets angry and reminds him of an affair that happened between them in the past. It finally dawned on Yifi that the affair is the only reason Shanshan wanted to expose him. Just as she's about to wake Yingying up, Yingying suddenly pushes Shanshan in the direction of Yifi. This forced movement brings about an involuntary kiss between Yifi and Shanshan. Seeing that the kiss made her calm down, Yifi proceeds to kissing her one more time. This time the kiss is even longer. As a result of this, Shanshan faints. Shanshan fainting had at least made her to be quiet. Yifi then uses the chance to go outside and meet Mengxin again. He searches for some time before eventually seeing her. Yifi apologizes for keeping her waiting for so long. Mengxin asks why Yifi would choose a romantic movie on their first outing together. Yifi, who had picked the movie randomly, noticed that the atmosphere was becoming rather more and more awkward than before. He tries to speak up but gets cut off by the sound of Yingying's voice. Apparently, she had woken up and left the theater. Yifi knows that Yingying is close by, so he decides to be quiet for some time. He then hears the voices of Lin Jing and Fanking. Yifi remembers that he came with 4 dates to the theater. He quickly starts to reason who he will follow among the 4 women. Yifi is in a tight situation at this point. He wonders that the only thing separating him from the women was a rectangular garden. He reasons that if any of them should call his phone, then he will get exposed. Yifi quickly starts thinking of a plan that will get him out of his already tight situation. Meanwhile, Yingying grows more and more impatient. She asks Shanshan about Yifi's whereabouts. Shanshan knows full well where Yifi went, decides not to talk. Shanshan acts rather too awkward in her response to Yingying's question, and Yingying notices it. She calls Yifi on the phone, but just as she tries to phone him, Yifi shows up out of nowhere. Yingying asks how he had just appeared. Yifi quickly thinks of what to say. He couldn't tell her that he crawled through the garden to meet up with her. Yifi explains that he indeed left before the movie ended. He adds, saying that Shanshan knew when he left. He proceeds to ask Shanshan, but she runs away without even answering the question. Finally, Yifi and Yingying are left alone. Yifi could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Yingying uses the opportunity to thank Yifi for the good time they had in the theater. The two have a brief conversation before Yingying takes the bold step. She asks if Yifi is ready to become her boyfriend. This move makes the atmosphere become very tense. Luckily for Yifi, his phone starts to ring. Yifi checks his phone only to see that it was Mengxin who had been calling. He makes up an excuse, saying that his phone had fallen into the rectangular garden. He then crawls under the garden, this time to Mengxin direction. At least, this is what he thinks till he puts his head outside the bush. Biffy finds himself looking at Fanking. It appears that he had gone through the wrong direction, which led him to Fanking be a mistake. Biffy makes up an excuse which he plans to tell Fanking if she asks his reason for being at the theater. Fanking indeed asks what Yiffei is doing in the theater. She inquires if he is on a date with another woman. Yiffei convinces Fanking that he isn't on a date with anyone but was at the theater to do some business. Fanking believes him, then covers his face with a mask before kissing him. After the kiss, Yiffei leaves through the bush one more time. This time he makes sure he goes to meet Mengsen, but is once again shocked. He goes to the wrong place once more. Yiffei's uncle had been knocked out for about some time. When he finally wakes up, he sees himself still in the box, but this time he had already been seen naked. He had been naked throughout the time he passed out. He noticed a group of people had gathered and were taking pictures and videos of him. He wastes no time to flee the scene by running away. On his way out, Yiffei's uncle notices a man carrying Shanshan. It appeared that the man had the intention of taking and keeping her hostage. He quickly tries to make the man come to a stop, but is interrupted by another sword-wielding man. The man attacks Yiffei's uncle, but due to his reflexes he is able to dodge the attack. Yiffei's uncle then proceeds to giving the man an attack of his. The battle continues back and forth, with neither Yiffei's uncle nor the sword-wielding man showing any sign of giving up. At this point, Yiffei's uncle takes things personal and attacks with full force. He isn't ready to let Shanshan, who he termed as his daughter, get kidnapped right in his front. The swordman decides to unveil one of his best strikes on Yiffei's uncle. He called it the Crescent Slash. Yiffei's uncle is stunned that the swordman could unleash such a strike. He makes sure he dodges the attack before unleashing one of his own. Yiffei's uncle called this particular attack the Tank Punch. The punch connects, making the sword held by the man to leave his hand. Seeing that the man had been disarmed, Yiffei's uncle rushes in to try and finish the battle, but gets kicked by the man. The kick is so powerful that it takes Yiffei's uncle into a garden. Of course, the garden is the same one in which Yiffei was battling with his dating issue. Meanwhile, Yiffei meets up with Lin Jing. She doesn't really know him without his mask, so Lin gets confused. Yiffei then turns her attention to his uncle, who at this point is in the air approaching the garden. Yiffei uses the opportunity to put on the mask. Lin tries to remove the mask from his face, but is shocked when she sees another mask under the first mask. Yiffei begs her to help him since there is a group of criminals nearby. Lin agrees, saying that he should make her disciple. Yiffei agrees after weighing his options. He then proceeds to assigning Lin with her first mission. The first mission given to Lin is to help evacuate both Ying and Fanking, while he will evacuate Mengsen. Lin wastes no time to go execute the plan. Yiffei, on the other hand, moves towards Mengsen. He had a reason to believe that the criminals could as well want to capture Mengsen. Yiffei tells Mengsen to follow him, but is stopped when he sees a group of men approaching him. He tells her to wait, alarming her about the current danger. Lin, on the other hand, executed her own part of the mission successfully. Yiffei's uncle looks through the bushes and sees Yiffei holding onto Mengsen. He asks himself if Yiffei had actually been dating another lady. He starts to rethink the way he had thought of Yiffei after knowing that Yiffei is indeed a player. Seeing that the three women were gone, Yiffei's primary goal is to make sure Mengsen is safe at all cost. Yiffei starts to think that his operation date will actually become successful, but is brought back to reality by his uncle, who tells him to stop what he is doing. Yiffei is shocked that his uncle was also at the theater too. He quickly alarms his uncle about the crowd that was forming due to his uncle's naked status. Just then, Ying and Fanking come towards Yiffei. They ask why Yiffei is with Mengsen. At this point, Yiffei realizes that everything was over. He had been caught in the most brutal of ways. Still in his awkward moment, Yiffei gets stabbed by a woman who shows out of nowhere. The woman noticed that Yiffei's unawareness and takes it as an opening to attack. The rest are all shocked as they worry about Yiffei. Yiffei's uncle states that Atlas, the moment he had been waiting for, had come finally. He states the woman with her cape is the same person that took Shanshan away. Yiffei is surprised to hear that Shanshan had been abducted. Yiffei's uncle tries to attack, but is stopped by Yiffei, who tells him to watch out for Ying and the others. He also begs that his uncle take them to somewhere safe while he faces the lady. Yiffei promises to bring Shanshan back by any means possible. Yiffei's uncle tells Yiffei to make it back alive. The caped woman assures that none of them present will make it out of there alive. Yiffei asks why she wanted to kill them. The woman explains that her boss is the little brother of Stick, a guy Yiffei killed in the Congo forest earlier. She then proceeds to attack him but is stopped by Blood Eagle, who questions her for disclosing the plan to an enemy. Yifi calls her an idiot for telling an enemy, who she isn't sure is dead, yet the secret of her plan. He then takes out the knife from his back, the same knife she used to stab him. She is shocked to see that there's no wound on his back. The Blood Eagle tells the caped woman to go after the others while he takes care of Yifi. Yifi, seeing that the yet-to-come battle had already pulled in some spectators amongst the normal people, tells the Blood Eagle to take the fight to another place, stating that the current arena was too noisy. The Blood Eagle tells Yifi to follow him to the place Shanshan is being held hostage. Apparently, to follow the Blood Eagle required of Yifi to battle with different warriors. Firstly, he is met with a level 46 ranked warrior by the name of Jai. Ji introduces himself saying that he is Jai, a disciple of the Blood Wolf. He also says that he had heard a lot about Yifi. He further says that he is one of the only warriors who wields a detached blade. Yifi brings to Ji's notice that his talk had started to become too much. This makes Ji angry as he starts to attack Yifi with all his might. Surprisingly, Yifi dodges all the attacks without even stressing himself a little bit. Ji then uses a series of attacks but finds himself disarmed in the process. Yifi is quick enough to take away the detached blade from Ji without him even knowing. Ji exclaims that it is impossible to do such. Yifi displays some form of movement with Ji's detached blade before finally saying that the blade is actually fun to use. He then gets a hold of Ji by the neck. Seeing that he has been handicapped, Ji tries to use his special move but gets caught in his tracks. Yifi doesn't waste time before he puts an end to Ji. Meanwhile, the Blood Eagle together with the man carrying Shanshan are headed away from the theater. The man asks Blood Eagle why they are abducting the young lady in the first place, and the Blood Eagle replies that it's because he doesn't want to be defeated. He explains further that if their ambush fails, then no other person will be able to capture such a high-ranked man like Yifi. He tells the man that they want to use Shanshan as a trick towards Yifi, that with her they will have leverage over Yifi. The man is shocked to hear that Yifi was actually the leader of the Flying Eagles team. He asks Blood Eagle how it was possible in the first place. Blood Eagle assures him that he will find out in due time. However, back at the theater, a robbery is taking place. People run about as pandemonium fills the air. A taxi driver sees the situation as an opportunity to make some cash. He decides to hike the price for transport out of the theater. He gets stopped by Yifi's uncle and the four women, who consisted of Ying Ying, Mengxin, Fanking, and Lin. The taxi driver is astonished by the lady's beauty. He admires them for some time before actually setting a price. He calls an outrageous price but is corrected with a few blows from Yifi's uncle. Yifi's uncle continues to hold the taxi driver, thereby putting him in a very awkward situation. The ladies don't understand what's actually going on, so they try to interpret by themselves. Mengxin gives a theory that maybe Yifi's uncle is not planning to follow them and leave the theater. Meanwhile, the taxi driver glances at some old memories of his. The taxi driver had been a pilot flying a fighter jet. He remembers the incident that led to him coming to the theater. The same incident that put him in the state he is in at that point. Seeing this, Yifi's uncle tells the ladies that he cannot leave the theater with all the robbers terrorizing the place. He tells them that he has to stay and fight. Just then the caped woman comes again, this time with 4 armed men. She tells Yifi's uncle that the assassination team can't leave any target alive. While she's still talking, Yifi's uncle disarms all the 4 men. Not only does he disarm them, he even collects a piece of clothing from one of them. Yifi's uncle appreciates the fact that he is also a trained personnel and is eager to take them down. Seeing that he may be handicapped or stuck in a tight corner, Yifi's uncle decides to draw the robbers into the forest. He literally runs towards the forest, telling them to come after him if they are brave enough. The caped woman watches with pleasure as her men run into the forest, knowing fully well that Yifi's uncle is about to struggle for his life. Meanwhile, Yifi and the Blood Eagle finally have a face-off. Yifi queries the Blood Eagle for leaving the Flying Eagles squad to turn into a terrorist. The Blood Eagle replies, saying that they can't be 2 leaders in a team. Yifi talks about how they used to be best friends till Blood Eagle decided to turn into a life of crime. Yifi cuts the chatter short, saying that they will continue the talk later. All he wanted at this point is to retrieve what was taken from him. The Blood Eagle doesn't agree to let Yifi take back Shanshan, which causes a battle between the 2 men. The Blood Eagle sends one of his warriors, who is an S-ranked level 45 soldier by the name of Chop, to attack Yifi. Chop begins with a strike but gets blocked by Yifi, who overturns the attack. Yiffy then issues an attack of his own, but unfortunately it doesn't have any effect on Chop. It appeared that the armor worn by the Blood Eagle mercenary actually absorbs power from any attack or strike. Chop then converts the absorbed energy and uses it on Yiffy. He tells Yiffy that no matter the amount of strikes or attacks that he will still be the winner of the battle. Chop then thrusts forward to attack Yiffy once more. The battle seemed endless as the two former best friends continued to attack themselves. Chop has a leverage due to the armor he is putting on. Meanwhile, the Blood Eagle just watches the battle go down. The armor seems like a cheat to Yiffy, as all the power he is using to attack Chop is being used against him. Yiffy tries different ways and strikes, but each one proves useless against the armor of Chop. Chop tells Yiffy to give up, saying that he is going to win for sure. The Blood Fox Squad, which is the team on which the Caged Woman, the Blood Eagle, Chop and so many others are in, is an assassination squad. Probably one of the most terrifying in Southeast Asia. The recruits get trained in places such as the forest and are trained to be skilled in assassination. The squad itself had been involved in politics. The Caged Woman keeps in touch with her squad who had followed Yiffy's uncle into the forest. She doesn't have any doubt, knowing that the squad were trained in the forest, and so knew the whole place from front to back. Little did she know that Yiffy's uncle had even more experience than the Blood Fox Squad when it comes to the forest. She finds out when the whole squad that followed Yiffy's uncle into the forest is wiped out by Yiffy's uncle. Yiffy's uncle had to use ammunition and some explosives to get the job done. It had been a while since he had been in contact with such devices. The smell of these devices brought a lot of joy to Yiffy's uncle, and also reminded him of the days when he was still fighting. The Caged Woman decides to send more troops to attack Yiffy's uncle in the forest. Unknown to her again that Yiffy's uncle had set traps all over the place, thus making it hard to make a step without being hit by one of the traps. When the squad members started noticing the traps, they start to become more careful. Yiffy's uncle, after seeing thus, decides to end things by himself. He uses a gun to shoot the remaining squad members. By so doing, he takes the life of each and every one of them present at the forest. The Caged Woman just stands in disbelief as she watches the downfall of all her troops. Meanwhile, Yiffy had come up with a way of defeating Chop. Rather than using his inner energy, which will end up being absorbed by the armor, Yiffy uses some outward force. The force dismantles the armor. Chop is shocked to see this. Yiffy doesn't waste much time before destroying the whole armored suit, thus rendering Chop powerless. Yiffy then faces the Blood Eagle once more. At this point, he doesn't want another distraction to interrupt them, but unfortunately he gets interrupted. A lady police officer, seeing that guns were involved, decides to use her police officer instinct to rescue any person who is able to flee from the scene. She comes across a woman who looks ill. She decides to help the woman out of the place. Unknown to police officer that the woman is actually part of the wild robbery and is working with the Blood Fox Squad. She carries the woman in her arms. She then asks the woman if she could check her body to see what the problem is. The woman refuses, as she had hidden a knife which she planned to use to stab the police officer once she drops her. The police officer offers to help take her out, and without the woman giving her any approval, she takes to her heels, charging forward with the woman still in her arms. Due to all the running and being hit by people on the way, the woman has the urge to pee but doesn't know how to tell the police officer. Meanwhile, a group of heroes are seen hurriedly running to the theater. They had received a distress signal from the place stating that a robbery was currently going on. The group of heroes' main objective is to first and foremost evacuate the civilians to a safe place before facing the immediate threat. The police officer continues to carry the woman. This time she increases her speed, as the woman isn't the only person she planned to save. The woman, on the other hand, tries her best not to release the urine in her bladder. She apparently had a high rank in the Blood Fox Squad and didn't want to get humiliated. The group of heroes, on the other hand, find it hard to open a door leading to where most of the civilians are. They combine their strengths, but the door refuses to even open a little bit. They go around in search of what will help them open the door. Yiffy and the Blood Eagle still confront themselves. Chop stays at the side, reasoning how he had just been defeated. Chop tries to understand how Yiffy defeated the full attacking team all by himself. He acknowledges that Yiffy is indeed deserving of being his master's teammate. The information Chop was given about Yiffy is that he could use palm attacks and also inner energy, but he was never informed that Yiffy could also use fist and leg attacks. Yiffy is indeed a well-rounded fighter and genius. Yiffy sees an opening and tries to use it to save Shanshan but gets stopped by the Blood Eagle. He calls Yifei naive for even trying to use such a silly opening to save Shanshan. Blood Eagle intercepts Yifei as he tries to save Shanshan once more. Yifei, getting frustrated, tells Blood Eagle to move away, but the Blood Eagle doesn't. Instead, he tells Yifei to be more serious and face him. Yifei accepts the challenge. Blood Eagle then brings out a sword, which he intends to use to fight Yifei. The sight of the sword brings Yifei back some memories. The memories include when they were still in the army, a particular incident that occurred back then when Blood Eagle killed all the villagers and even his team members with that same sword. Yifei remembers asking Blood Eagle the reason behind all the killing, and the response from Blood Eagle is that none of them were worthy of his protection. Blood Eagle was later tried in military court. Yifei could never forget the look in Blood Eagle's eyes that day. He had the same look in his eyes once more, which meant that all he wanted was to kill Yifei. Blood Eagle rushes at Yifei with a strike, but Yifei is also up to the task. He dodges the attack, lamenting that it was actually a very quick strike. Meanwhile, back at the theater, the police officer continues to carry the woman who is identified at this point as Twin Blade, an infamous assassin known for her venomous ways. She is known as the No. 1 assassin below the S rank, but had killed a lot of S-ranked personnel in the past. It won't be difficult for her to take down the cop, but due to her current state, it may be difficult for her. Twin Blade cannot take the stress anymore, so she decides to talk to the police officer on her current situation, which is her full bladder. The group of heroes decide to gather the civilians they can find in the building. They see that the only way to leave the building is through the door. The same door that proved hard for them to open. They continue to try to open the door one more time. They get a surprise by one of their kind, who uses a burst of his energy to open the door. Finally, the burst of energy is enough to open the door. The civilians are then rushed out of the building that is about to explode. Meanwhile, one of Twin Blade's counterpart by the name of Sweetie had been following both Twin Blade and the police officer for quite some time. Sweetie sees some liquid floating in the air. This is the same liquid that float whenever Twin Blade perspire, meaning that she is about to act. Sweetie watches keenly to see what Twin Blade has in mind. After some time, nothing happens. This shocks Sweetie. She doesn't hold it back as she shouts at Twin Blade to kill the police officer. The police officer, on hearing this, turns back to see who is speaking. In the process, she drops Twin Blade. Finally, Twin Blade sees the opening she had been waiting for. She runs away from the police officer, but doesn't see where she can relieve herself. Instead, she just ends up running towards the direction of the group of heroes. Sweetie exclaims, saying that they are too many. Fortunately for Twin Blade, Team 7 had just arrived to provide her with assistance. The Blood Fox squad were currently facing a lot as they went downhill. All their forces had one casualty or the other. Team 1 and 2 had been completely wiped out. Same as Team 3, they had also lost contact of Team 5, while Team 4 recorded about 50% casualties. All these teams were wiped out by just one man, and the man is Yifei's uncle, who situated himself in the forest. The Kate woman loses her patience and enters the forest to take care of Yifei's uncle by herself. Yifei's uncle tries to use some traps to catch her, but the Kate woman is up to the task. At this point, Yifei's uncle notices that the Kate woman is evenly matched with him. Yifei's uncle tries calling the Kate woman a counterpart, but he gets stopped by her as she says she can't be a counterpart to such an old man like him. Yifei's uncle finds what she said offensive and so advises her to take back her word, or else she will fall under his feet. The Kate woman doesn't see the threat as an actual threat. She quickly brings out her battle weapon, which is a whip. She sends a series of attacks towards Yifei's uncle, thinking that it will restrict all his possible movements, but she's proven wrong. He gets a hold of the whip. Yifei's uncle then starts to shed tears. The Kate woman is shocked to see him crying. She asks if he is ready to surrender, but instead hears that the only reason he is crying is because the Kate woman is using the whip for the wrong purpose. Meanwhile, across the street, Blood Eagle and Yifei continue to battle. The Blood Eagle is determined to end Yifei's life. He sends some attacks at Yifei, which end up destroying the shirt Yifei had on him. Yifei, seeing how terrifying and quick the attack, is in shock. He plans on how to get back into full shape to be up to the challenge. The Blood Eagle, however, taunts Yifei, saying that he had regressed over time. Blood Eagle claims that he will use Yifei's move to end him. Yifei says that it won't be possible for Blood Eagle to defeat him using only fist attacks. The Blood Eagle, on hearing this, drops his sword. Yifei rushes to hit Blood Eagle with a strike, but is shocked to see him dodge the attack. Blood Eagle not only dodges the attack, he also makes a copied version of Yifei's strike, which he uses on Yifei. Chop, who had been watching the fight go on, since wonders how it is even possible for his master the Blood Eagle to do such. Yiffei at this point rests helpless on a tree. He feels defeated but is afraid to show it. Blood Eagle, on the other hand, is proud of himself. He rubs the pride in Yiffei's face by saying that although Yiffei is a fast learner and also a genius, he is a better fighter by all means. He calls Yiffei a pathetic hero and also says that he will kill Shanshan since Yiffei isn't up to the task at all. Yiffei's uncle still faces the Kate woman. He lets her strike him times without number with her whip. She has no choice but exclaim that usually people would have been knocked out with as little as a few strikes from the white. Whereas Yiffei's uncle took a lot but still didn't fall, he collects the whip from her to show her the reason he hadn't been knocked out yet. He finally shows her the true way of using such a whip. He continues to whip, and without much stress she falls to the ground. The Kate woman begs Yiffei's uncle to stop saying that the technique he uses to hit her with the whip is well above anything she had seen before. She asks how Yiffei's uncle's skills became so impressive and reached the point it had reached because she had never seen a layman have such skill in her life. The Kate woman never expected to have lost to a layman. Yiffei's uncle acknowledges that he is indeed a layman, but he is a layman who had been extremely trained in the whip technique by an expert. He explains that he had been cultivating this skill for a number of decades. At the mention of decades, the Kate woman gets shocked. She had never heard of an expert teaching a layman, not to even think of teaching him for decades. She forfeits and agrees that she had lost the fight. Yiffei's uncle leaves her alive and walks out of the forest with a coat he picks from the floor. Meanwhile, the Blood Eagle tells Yiffei that he is going to end Shanshan's life, since to him weak people don't have the right to live. He tells Yiffei that he is going to kill her right away. This particular statement sinks into Yiffei's head as he ponders on what to do. Shanshan finally wakes up, only to see Blood Eagle approach her with a sword. Yiffei switches his mood as he is not ready to let Shanshan die so easily. He rushes and uses a fist attack on the Blood Eagle. Yiffei finally had the eyes of a Grim Reaper once again. Chop noticed the eyes. He knows that the fight won't be an easy one to watch as both men are willing to fight with everything they have. Yiffei speaks saying that the winner of the fight will decide what to do with Shanshan. Chop remembers that even the No-One assassin couldn't live to see the light of the next day after seeing Yiffei with those eyes. The eyes only come about when blood flows through Yiffei's eyes, mostly because he had reached his peak of rage. On seeing Yiffei, Shanshan knows that she had been kidnapped and Yiffei was currently fighting for her. She tries to talk to Yiffei, but only gets a response telling her to be rest assured that she will leave there alive and without a single scratch on her body. Shanshan immediately starts to blush knowing that Yiffei is concerned about her. Blood Eagle asks if the family reunion is finally done so they would be able to get over with the battle. As they start the fight, they get interrupted once again, this time by the police officer, Lin, who tells them to stop. Immediately he sees Lin. Yiffei puts on his mask. Lin salutes Yiffei, saying that she won't let anyone touch him. She also brings to Blood Eagle's notice that the whole neighborhood is being covered by the police. Before she can tell Blood Eagle this, Yiffei disappears with Shanshan. Lin is puzzled on where Yiffei could have gone and also the whereabouts of Shanshan. Blood Eagle also exits the theater, saying that the fight isn't over and that Yiffei will only put those around him at risk. Later in the night, Yiffei and Shanshan talk. It appears that Shanshan had now developed feelings for him due to the heroic save from the kidnappers. She thanks him and is about to open up on her feelings to him, but gets interrupted by Mengxin and Yingying, who approach them. Yingying looks very angry. Yingying is indeed very angry as she had received some information that Yiffei was on another date with another lady. Not only a lady but three, she had come with Yiffei's uncle to clarify the whole case. She wastes no time as she asks the question. Yiffei, knowing fully well that it will turn into a 3-on-1 questioning session, tries to cook up a lie. His uncle tells Yingying to keep quiet, saying that he had seen everything that went on and knows exactly what happened at the theater. Yiffei's shirt skips a bit as he remembers his uncle seeing him hold Mengxin in a rather awkward state. Fortunately for him, his uncle misinterpreted the whole issue and thought that Yiffei was there to protect all the ladies involved. The uncle states this and says that he has trust for Yiffei, knowing that he won't cheat. Just then, Shanshan proceeds to speak. This makes Yiffei very uncomfortable as Shanshan was the one who caught him in the act in the first place. He had forgotten that Shanshan was the main person to persuade. Remarkably, Shanshan only thanks him for saving her. She doesn't make any mention of what happened at the theater. Yiffei's mind is finally put to rest as he breathes a sigh of relief. Lin enters to show Yiffei the picture of the masked man. she still is unsure of who the person is. Instead, she is overzealous, stating that the masked man paid her a disciple of his and even gave her the first mission, which she did perfectly. Yiffei congratulates her before taking his leave, unknown to him that his mask had fallen from his pocket. Lin picks it up, then reasons the chances of Yiffei being the masked man. Yiffei, on the other hand, helps drive Mengxin back home. He feels that he has screwed his chances with her. On reaching her house, Yiffei obliges to explain to Mengxin everything that had happened. She, however, tells him that there is no need. She already knew what happened and didn't need any explanation. Yiffei is happy about this and decides to leave. Mengxin rushes to grab him from behind. She holds him tight before revealing her feelings for him. She says that she developed those feelings ever since he saved her from the forest and had been having the feeling that he's the perfect man for her. Yiffei, however, tries to talk her out of this by saying that he is not perfect at all, that he even smokes and drinks often. The two sit down as Yiffei takes 10 minutes to explain his relationship with Yingying. After the explanation, Mengxin sees that she still has a chance to be with him in the future. Yiffei leaves the house still shocked that Mengxin could have feelings for him. He does not want to engage in anything with her due to the high-profile people behind her. However, since the Blood Eagle is back, Yiffei has to rush home and secure his household from any attack. The next day, Mefei wakes up early, gets dressed, and leaves the house. Before going out, he tells Yai that he wouldn't be able to make it for dinner, so she should settle herself alone. Yai, who had been making a scarf for Yiffei, tries to ask for his size, but unfortunately he leaves in a hurry and doesn't answer the question. Yai then goes out to the market to get some groceries and foodstuffs. On her way back, she gets stopped by two ladies who drag her into a corner in the alley. They take her scarf, which she had been knitting for Yiffei, and call it ugly. They then start to verbally abuse both her and the scarf, saying that even beggars won't wear such a piece of trash. They, however, get stopped by Lin, who tells them to leave Yili alone. Meanwhile, at Sinyu Tea House, Yiffei asks about the whereabouts of Zhou Boyu. The receptionist directs him to room 403, saying that Zhou inhabited the room. Yiffei walks to the room and opens the door. He meets Zhou Boyu on a chair. Zhou welcomes Yiffei. It appeared that Zhou is a part of the Flying Eagles Team Phantom, a team which is far more dangerous and powerful than the Flying Eagle Squad. The members of the Phantom team are only 10, consisting of Flying Eagle Squad past leaders, at least the ones who are still fit and able to practice. Zhou asks why Yiffei had come to see him. Yiffei hadn't come over for quite a long time. Yiffei replies that he came because of the Blood Eagle's reappearance. At the mention of the name Blood Eagle, Zhou breathes a murderous sigh. Blood Eagle and Zhao had apparently gotten some history between them. Yiffei explains further that he had a feeling that his whereabouts were being leaked, which is the main reason for him coming to the Xinyu. Zhou assures him that it's a setup between the Blood Eagle and the Saint. Yiffei is confused, as he had met with the Saint at least once in his lifetime. Zhou explains of two organizations by the name of Stick and the Holy Battle Organization, of which the Saint is part of both. Zhao assures that even with Yiffei being among the top 3 on the charts, it won't be enough reason for the two organizations to leak his information and try to kill him, and even if they do, why didn't the organizations spread the news to everyone? Yiffei and Zhou continue to talk about Saint, but get interrupted by a phone call from Yingying. She asks why Yiffei hadn't come back for dinner. Yiffei explains that he is in a meeting with one of his teammates. Yingying doesn't believe his words, so she asks him to give the phone to his teammate. Yiffei gives the phone to Zhou, who assures Yingying that he is indeed with him and not any other person. Yingying tells Zhou about how they almost got kidnapped by some assassins recently, which is the cause of her worry. Zhou cuts the phone before facing Yiffei. He scolds Yiffei for not talking about the kidnappers or the fact that his family is in danger. Yiffei leaves shortly after Zhou assigns some people to protect his family and is also given another mission by Zhou. On his way back home, he sees his housemaid Yadi with Lin. Lin is apparently scolding the two girls that dragged Yadi to a dark corner. Lin tells Yadi to stand up for herself to avoid being bullied all the time by people. At the sight of Yiffei, Yi excuses herself from the whole situation and leaves. Lin thinks maybe it was due to something she said that made Yi run off so fast. Meanwhile, in a warehouse, Blood Eagle talks to the caped woman. He scolds her for not being able to complete the task given to her, which is to kill all the members of Yiffei's family. He emphasizes on the fact that she couldn't even kill a single person in the family. The Blood Eagle calls her a failure and says that he is going to kill her for failing the mission, and the Blood Fox squad in general. Blood Wolf instead cuts off a tiny strand of her hair and tells his boss that they need the manpower to defeat the Golden Eagle as he is very powerful. He tells his master to keep her alive so as to redeem her mistakes. Blood Fox sees that she has been spared and their boss tells Blood Wolf to take his leave. She thanks her boss for sparing her life, and her boss asks her if she is aware of why he made him the leader of the company. He tells her that he has always doubted Blood Wolf, and he gave him the chance so as to test him, but it seems that he has passed the test. At Ying Ying's home, Ying Ying welcomes Yefei, and he becomes surprised and tries to escape, but she pulls him back and tells him that it was her fault for not understanding that he had to work and deal with her sister, and he begins to wonder why she is dressed in that manner. She tells him that she is only dressed in that manner so as to deal with her parents, and they go to dinner with his uncle. His uncle hands him a gift, and he begins to wonder what it is. His uncle tells him that it is a new whip, and they continue to enjoy the rest of their evening. Later that night, Yefei and Ying are in the same room, and he begins to wonder why his uncle got him a whip. Ying then asks him if he will love to sleep with her, and he turns and begins to admire her body and wonders what is going on. Yefei begins to wonder where the old Ying went as she begins to act strange towards him, and they both fall off the bed. Meanwhile, his uncle becomes drunk, and he tells her that he is not like her sister who acts weird when she is drunk. He passes the room and hears a noise, and thinks they have started having fun. He peeps and sees Yefei with the whip he gave him as a gift, and immediately goes to hide so that they will not be seen. He begins to think that they are going far and decides to peep to see how far they have gone, and he sees his daughter sitting on top of Yefei. He immediately runs out, and Yefei tells his uncle that he has misunderstood the entire situation. Yefei goes out to the upper star garden and begins to feel weird, and he sees Yai being beaten up by another lady. The girls begin to bully Yai and tore her scarf that has been precious to her thinking she used it as a gift to her boyfriend. They then decide to strip her and take photos of her, and Yefei immediately hits the guy at his head and tells them to stop what they are doing to Yaidi. 15 minutes later, he deals with the bullies and asks her if she was the one that knitted the scarf. She begins to cry, and she tells Yefei to stop trying to comfort her as the scarf is ugly. He immediately begs her to stop crying and tells her that she is similar to him, as she does not know how to reject others. He then begins to think about the many times he has tried to make others happy, and he tells her that the scarf is really beautiful. Yefei then insists they mend it, and suddenly it is being taken away by the wind. Yaidi then tells him that she will knit another one all over again, and he tells her not to bother as he tells her not to give up easily. He immediately uses the last thread in his hand to pull down the scarf, and he uses the 1,000 hands of Guan Yin to immediately mend the scarf. He finishes knitting it and hands her the scarf, and he tells her that if the person she plans on giving it to rejects it, he will teach the person a lesson. Yeti becomes happy, and she hangs it on his neck and tells him that she wanted to give it to him, and he becomes surprised and thanks her for her efforts. She begins to stare at him in the eyes, and he immediately receives a call from his fifth brother. His fifth brother informs him that he has sent over a team, and he will know as soon as they arrive. The next day at the airport, Yefei sees that the two sisters at equals has insisted on following him, and he sees that Ying has forgotten about the incident in the night, and he immediately sees Zhang Mingri and some members of High Old Unit, and he immediately tells him that he did not expect his fifth brother to send him, and Zhang also tells him that he did not believe that Weifei would actually need his help. Ying's sister begins to feel that the atmosphere is off and think that Yefei and Zhang will have a fight. They suddenly greet themselves by giving each other a hug, and Yefei salutes his old teammates as he was formerly their leader. Zhang immediately goes to greet Ying's sister thinking she is the one married to Yefei. Ying becomes angry and immediately hits him, and he immediately apologizes for mistaking her identity. Ying and her sister then decide to excuse the boys, and Zhang tells him that he is the perfect successor after him as he begins to remember their old memories. They begin to argue again, and they insist on settling it in a VR game. In the game, Zhang challenges him to see who can shoot down more enemies. Yefei immediately runs out of bullets in the game and sees that the magazine will not fit, and Zhang tells him that he has a blowgun as he will win. Ying begins to tell her sister that she has a feeling that Zhang is not a good person, and she begins to wonder what they are doing, not knowing that it is an action in the game. The boys continue to hold on to each other, unknowing that they are in an awkward position to the girls' point of view. They get into an argument and begin to beat each other up. At the hotel, their faces are both swollen, and they agree to talk about serious matters and ignore the issue they have with each other. Zheng then tells him that they were hired to get rid of the traitor Blood Eagle, and he is dead meat. Zheng tells him that he is planning on killing Blood Eagle, and Yifei tells him to think about his decision, well, as he is not an easy person to kill. Yifei tells him that it is as if his fifth brother is hiding something from him, as everything that happened the last time is a little fishy, and he advises they investigate the matter thoroughly before acting. Zheng agrees and tells him to control his aura, and leave it to him to settle the matter, as he does not need to suffer himself. Zheng takes his leave and Yifei begins to wonder what Blood Eagle is doing. Yifei then goes to the Manhwa hall to get some clothes and he sees Su Peng, who is in his school, and he begins to catch up with him. Su Peng also tells him that Tao Di is getting married and invites him to join him, and Yifei agrees to the offer since he has nothing doing. At the house, they all recognize him, and they invite him to join them for their small talk, while Tao is getting ready for the dinner. Yifei immediately calls Xinyu, and she asks him if he thought about her lately. Meanwhile, at the outskirts of the factory, Zheng and his men go out and they see the terrorist base, and they begin to devise a means to getting into the base. They see that it is heavily guarded and they go into the base and begin to take out the guards. Zheng then goes into the base and sees Blood Wolf and tries not to alert him. Zheng the Silver Eagle begins to fight with Blood Wolf, and he knocks him down, but Blood Wolf immediately stands up to his feet, and he tries to attack Zheng, who effortlessly dodges the attack. Zheng calls Blood Wolf a rat, and he also tells him that it has been long, and he notices that Blood Wolf has improved in his skills, but Blood Wolf ignores him, and a member of Zheng's team jumps behind Blood Wolf's back and tries to kill him, but he quickly senses it and uses his knife to kill the man. Blood Wolf then tells Zheng that there would be no one to disturb them as he has killed the man that tries to interrupt them, and he also adds that he does not know what is on his boss's mind as he had asked him to capture Zheng alive. Blood Wolf tells Zheng that he is not going to be naive as he is interested in killing Zheng. Meanwhile, at Tao Di's house, Kyo narrates to his guests that the situation with the thugs was so critical as the thugs were charging in his direction, and he had told them that his father is in the KO gang, and the thugs became frightened and they quickly escaped. The guests begin to tell Kyo that he is awesome, and he tells himself that he is the center of attraction, as he hopes Yifei is looking at him, because Yifei has always been acting cool when they were in school, and he had used that to snatch the beautiful girls. Kyo tells himself that it is his time to shine, but he suddenly hears Yifei receiving a call from League Xinyu, and he immediately turns down her offer, and this makes Kyo angry as he realizes that Yifei is acquainted with the renowned host. Kyo recounts how Yifei started by calling her name out and pretended that he was not free, then he tells himself that Yifei is behaving like an aristocrat who is acting cool. They begin to wonder how he got to know the two celebrities, and they tell him to prove how he was able to know them, seeing how low he is, and with a status like his it would be impossible. Biffy sees the need not to bother and begins to smoke a stick from the panda cigarette. He throws the pack to them and they see that it is a very special cigar that is given to men in high places. Kyo becomes angry and sees that he must stop him from making everyone see him as an elite. Suddenly the groom rushes in and tells them that the host got into an accident and will not be able to make it to the event. Yifei then asks him if he has contacted another host, and he tells them that there is no one available. Kyo then suggests he sees Xinyu as she is a very popular television host. On the other hand, Zheng and his team continue to battle Blood Wolf, and they see that he is managing to block their attacks and see that he has managed to strike Zheng as he is not able to dodge his attacks. Zheng then launches another attack on him and tells him to go to hell. He then informs him of how lucky he is and promises not to miss on the next move. Zheng tells him that he is so weak, and it seems that his boss has lowered his standards for him. He tells him that he is testing out his skill on him as he is not ready to fight his boss, and tells him that he is pretty average. Blood Eagle tells him that he has not changed, and Silver Eagle then receives information from his team warning him of some explosives in the warehouse that will go off in 30 seconds. Zheng becomes surprised and sees that he has been played, and Blood Eagle begins to walk away, telling him that he only pretended to be weak so as to drag time. Zheng immediately informs his men to retreat and warns the Blood Eagle to watch his back. Back at the hotel, Tao Yi tells them to find a way to solve his situation since they claim to be close to Xinyu. He then begs Yifei to help him as he has treated him to a nice meal in the past. Yifei immediately picks up his phone and calls Xinyu and informs her that they are lacking a wedding host, and he will need her help. Kyo begins to laugh and begins to see how long he plans on playing his game. Suddenly, Xinyu arrives, and they all become surprised that Yifei was able to bring them to the wedding. Ko tells himself to calm down as it is all a coincidence, and he tries to ask them if they know his father, but they reply negatively and walk past him. They go to see Yefe and tell him they came over as soon as they got his call. Ko becomes frustrated and begins to wonder how Yefe is able to bring the ladies at once from just a phone call. At the wedding venue, Sinyu introduces the guests to the bride and the groom, and they all welcome them and see how beautiful they look. Yefe immediately allows the girls to use their guards to take Master Ko away, and he thanks them and asks them why they are staring at him. They tell him that Song came to look for them again, and he tells them that they should accompany him the following day, and they beg him to help them, making him very surprised on hearing the news. The following day at the hotel, Jeng informs him that they failed the mission and Blood Fox had escaped. Yefe becomes so angry and tells them that it will not be easy to find him again, as he is very crafty and sneaky. They begin to blame one another, and Yefe asks Zhang to tell him all he knows about him. At the party, the two girls go to meet Song, and he decides to have some wine with them, seeing that they are finally with him. He then introduces them to his friends at the party and tries to have his way with Sinyu, but she pushes him away and warns him. Song becomes angry at them for offending him, thinking it was because of Yefe. Suddenly, Yefe appears behind him and pours a glass of wine on him. Song then asks him for his membership card as he is not invited to the party, and Yefe brings him a VIP card that was given to him the last time he came to the hotel. Song sees how important the card is and begins to wonder how it would be with someone as low as him. He immediately drags the card from him and tells them that it will surely be fake. The manager comes out and tells him that all the cards were all issued by him and greets Yefe. Yefe accepts the apologies and tells him to be careful about letting people like him into the hotel, which makes Song very angry. Ko immediately orders Song to leave immediately, and Yefe tells him not to worry himself. He sees that Song likes to show off about the Eagle team. He then decides to introduce him to someone. Jen comes in and tells them that he heard that someone has been using the name of the Eagle team to commit fraud, and Song sees that it is the team leader and suddenly becomes less confident. Jen challenges him and begins to beat him up, but Song begins to apologize, but Zheng orders his team to take him away. Zheng thanks Yefe for looking out for their name, and the manager sees why Miss Su has high hopes for him. Sinyu and her friend then thank him and give him a kiss on the cheek as a reward to him. The next day at Ying's company, Yefe greets Xiaoxu and Ying begins to pull him and tells him to follow her. Yefe then insists they talk at home as they are in the office, but she tells him to shut up and follow her into the office. Yefe follows her in and asks her what she wants, and she tells him that she has good news for him. She tells him that the people targeting her company has started to dissipate, and he notices that she is smiling. She tells him that her problems have been solved, and Yefe advises her to smile more in the future. She then decides to reward him as he has contributed greatly and immediately bends towards the table. Yefe begins to wonder what kind of position it is and begins to think that she wants something else. She tells him that she is preparing to transfer him to the executive department, and he tells her that she cannot do anything to him as they are colleagues and moreover they are in the office. Ying becomes angry and begins to beat him up and tells him not to dream of entering the executive department. Yefe begins to feel bad and wonders why he had to mention the last statement. Suddenly a car pulls up beside him and he sees Miss Su, and she hands him tickets to go on a break and relax. Yefe begins to wonder why there are 3 tickets, and she tells him that she wants to compete with the girl in his life for him. She drives off as there will be nothing else to talk about, and Yefe remains speechless. Meanwhile, at Song's International Limited Company, Song informs his workers to get lost and instructs them that no one should bother him. He goes to see Blood Wolf and his boss and asks him why Yefe has not been taken out. He replies to his question and informs him that Yefe is the Golden Eagle, and Song tells them that he does not care. He then informs them that Su has invited him for a vacation and tells them to try and get rid of him then. The boss appreciates the information and tells Song that he has a plan, but it will require his assistance. On the outskirts, Jing continues to go after her favorite criminal for coming into the police station to market hair removal products. She is immediately knocked out by the group she had fought before, and the 2 ladies decide on sparing the thief, and they drag him with them. The leader then promises that Golden Eagle's days will soon come to an end. At the cruise ship, Yefe, Ying and Shanshan sees that the ship is beautiful, and they seize Miss Su, who then tells them to board the ship. The head security for Miss Su then tells Yefe that he trusts he will protect her, and he guarantees her protection. Yefe then sees that 2 of the guests are acting strange, and he immediately sees Ying coming towards him. She asks for his arm, and he asks her what his identity is. She tells him that it will be decided based on his performance, and she immediately follows him onto the ship. On the ship, Ife begins to take pictures of the two guests, and he immediately picks up a scent on the ship and sees that it is familiar. Ying then informs him that she has seen the room, and he ignores and decides to follow her. Meanwhile, Zheng continues to inform the other guest on board of his story on how he became the leader, and Yifei overhears all he has said about him being not good as a leader and gets angry at him again. Yifei begins to beat him up, and Zheng decides to introduce him to the guest again properly. Yifei then asks him what he is doing on the ship, and Zheng tells him that he is on the ship because he is done with their mission, and also because he has learned how to talk to the lady from him, and he has come to talk to a lady. Yifei then warns him not to force himself on her, and he immediately sees that the auction has begun. Yifei then sees the guests again and begins to wonder why they are there. The auction continues, and the guests tell him that they host such events there as he watches as they begin to buy the antiques. Miss Su then takes them to the VIP room so that they can witness the entire auction from the glass window. Ying sees that the wine is good as it is one of the remains of the Titanic, and Miss Su asks if he is interested in it as she will love to get it for him. She asks him if he is sure, and he tells her that there will not be any need as he sees that the atmosphere begins to change as Ying begins to wonder what is going on. Yifei then decides to go out of the VIP room for some air as things are getting tense. The minister suddenly bids the drink, and the guest becomes happy, and Nora tells him not to inform people that she came with him since he is not the one that purchased it, but claiming to be the one that purchased it. At the captain's cabin, the Blood Wolf and his men beat up the captain and inform him that they will be taking over the ship. Meanwhile, Yifei goes outside the cabin for air and begins to wonder what Miss Su is trying to do, and he is suddenly ambushed by one of the assassins that were sent to kill him. Yifei blocks the attack and asks who he is. He tells Yifei that he has come to end his life. The assassin then goes to attack him, and Yifei begins to dodge the attacks, and Yifei sees that he is getting quicker, and he tries to use a hidden weapon against him, but the assassin tells him that his weapon is useless against him, and they continue to fight. The assassin then sees that he is skilled in throwing daggers, and Yifei uses the opportunity to pin her down. Suddenly the guest comes out and sees Yifei on top of her. He thinks that he is trying to have an affair with her as she is not among the three ladies he came with, and he immediately tries to hit him, but Yifei pulls back to avoid the punch. He accuses Yifei of being a scoundrel, and he will not allow it to happen. In a random room on the ship, Jing the police officer wakes up and begins to wonder where she is. Jing begins to wonder where she is and notices a fishy smell and begins to wonder if she has been captured. She notices someone beside her and tries to ask him where they are, and she sees that he is the thief that she has been chasing. She tries to hit him as he is the reason she was caught, and she begins to hear the conversation of the guards outside about trying to harass her. She sees that it is no longer safe for her to be there, and she asks the thief if he knows a way out as she plans to escape. She comes up with a plan and tells him to go ahead with her plan, and she tells him to use his teeth to chew her out of the ropes. The guards suddenly arrive and ask them why they are so noisy, and they see that they are still asleep. They leave, and Jing sees that she is unsuccessful and begins to wonder what she can do. On the other hand, Yifei and the guest begin to fight one another, and the assassin sees that he was defeated by 3 moves and terms him to be weak. Yifei then asks him why he is helping her, and if he is together with her. Suddenly, he is attacked by another assassin, and they are surprised at his speed that he used in attacking Yifei. But Yifei blocks the attack and sees that he had become faster. Yifei becomes surprised at how angry he is and notices that his speed has increased. The assassin becomes surprised, seeing that he has defeated Yifei the Golden Eagle with just 1 blow, and he continues to rush Yifei with lots of blows. He continues to blow him, and notices that Yifei has disappeared, and he begins to wonder where he has gone. Yifei immediately appears from the fog and plans to ambush him, and he hits him from behind and tries to hit him again. Yifei continues to jit him and sees that he has blocked his attacks, and notices that his defense has strengthened too. He catches Yifei by his foot and throws him to the floor, telling Yifei to watch him as he continues to beat him up. Meanwhile, the soldiers guarding the prison where Lin is kept begin to wonder where the noise is coming from, and one of the guards tells him not to bother himself as he is only interested in drinking. Lin sees that she was just 1 step closer to succeeding and tells him that he is all to blame for being so clumsy. She sees that the ropes are still untied, and the prisoner tells her to rest, since everything has turned out the way it should be. She then asks him why he had to commit those illegal acts, and tells him that she remembers his first visit to the police station, which was a case of him stealing a woman's underwear in public. He immediately recalls how the entire incident went down, and he remembers her hanging her underwear on the rooftop, and he took the chance immediately she left and took her underwear. He then picks up the underwear and sniffs it, and he begins to behave like a pervert. She gets angry and begins to call him a pervert. He then begs her to listen to his explanation and tells her that he did it because he realized that she stole his detergent powder, and that was the reason why he was sniffing her underwear. Lin then asks him if he is single, and he confesses to her that he is an eligible bachelor, and begins to wonder how she knew. She ignores him and begins to question him about the other crimes he has committed, and she sees that he has a good reason for all the crimes. She then promises to apologize to him if she investigates and finds out that all he said was true. She then asks him why he is short on cash and begins to tell her about himself and how he promised to raise his siblings all by himself. He tells her about the doll he promised to buy for his little sister Jing and how she was diagnosed with leukemia when he started working a part-time job. He informs her that he could not afford the amount of the medical fees and he began to work harder so as to raise enough money for her medical bills. He begins to cry and tells Lin that he has listed all hope of her surviving and just wants to buy a screaming rabbit for her before she leaves the world. On the other hand, Yiffy blocks Tanlin's attack and tells him that he should prepare for the third round. Miffy tells him that he can see that he is not a nobody and promises to show him some of his capabilities, and he goes to attack him. Ying immediately comes in with Nora and orders them to stop fighting and begins to wonder what they are doing. The assassin sees it as an opportunity to escape and leaves. Yiffy sees that they know one another, and Tanlin sees that he is a good guy and he has been attacking the wrong person. Tanlin and Yiffy then go into the ship to have a drink together, seeing he is a good person and not a bad one. Yiffy then notices Song and Kyobin, and he tells Tanlin that he is still going to be needed to fight since the fight did not satisfy them. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Jing begins to wonder why he would give up at such a crucial time. She then promises to help him with a solution to his problem once they are off the rope. The officer then tells him to look for a way to get out of the ropes, and he suddenly remembers the little child and breaks free from the ropes. Ali begins to tell Jing that he can no longer lay low after going through so much, but Jing becomes angry, and she immediately uses her leg to hit his mouth. Then she tells him that he is stupid as he did not untie the rope that was used to hang her when he had the chance, but he tells her that he is just trying to act cool. Jing yells at Ali that he should be fast, and after untying her, she asks him how he managed to cut the rope. Then he shows her the file with him because he is a locksmith. Then she tells him that there are two people outside the door and they need to get rid of the men, but Jang also tells Ali that she has an idea for how they would escape, and soon Ali distracts the guards and they immediately escape the place as the guards fall to the ground and the assassins. Meanwhile, at the cruise bar, Kyobin comes to meet Ying Ying and Nora as he begins to tell Ying Ying that he would take care of her, and he begins to think about how Ying Ying is, but he tells himself that he wishes that he would be alone with Ying Ying. Li Haifei comes in, and Kyobin becomes angry as he sees Haifei, but he remembers how all the girls he had liked in their school days had always liked Yiffy instead of him. After Yiffei has greeted Kyobin, he asks Haifei what his relationship is with Ying Ying. Then he tells Kyobin that he is Ying Ying's boyfriend. Kyobin becomes angry, and he begins to think of how possible it is for someone like Haifei to be able to be her boyfriend. As Kyobin becomes surprised and Yiffei becomes angry, because Kyobin begins to shout, and he also invites the attention of a member of his thug, and the two begin to argue. The two begins to fight, and as Li Haifei becomes tired of it, he immediately steps in and beats up a man, and as the man leaves, Yiffei tells himself that he has to do a background check on the men, but as they all stand to assess what has happened, they suddenly begins to hear a noise from the floor above their floor, and they notice that the sound is coming from a gunshot. They suddenly hear a man introducing himself as one of the 4 ambassadors of the Stick organization, and he also adds that the cruise has been hijacked by his team. Then he yells at the people there that they should all bow down, and he adds that some people should pack all the money they have made from the auction. Ying Ying tells Yiffei that Shanshan is still at the auction venue. Then Yiffei immediately instructs Chanlin that he should take Ying Ying and Nora to their rooms for their safety while he goes to settle the mess. Meanwhile, Jing begins to fight with the assassins, but as she fights with one of them, she hits Jing, and as Jing withdraws from the match, she immediately tells Ali that he should escape while she covers for him. One of the assassins tells Jing they did something to spoil their reputation, but when she asks, they tell her that she has forgotten about it, but when she recollects that it is the same assassin. One of the ladies then tells Jing that she is going to take revenge on her. Then Jing immediately tells the assassin that she does not know, but the assassin immediately rushes towards Jing and begins to fight with her. Then she uses one of her gadgets to blast Jing, but she dodged it. One of the hosts is being held by the raiders of the cruise, and they begin to tell her that she should have fun with them. Then she begins to cry, and suddenly, Li Yifei comes in, and he sees and asks them if they are shooting a movie, and they tell him that they are shooting a movie as they think he is not aware of what is going on, because he has told them that he is not aware of what has been happening as he was in the soldiers. The lady immediately yells that they are raiders, but she did not complete her statement before Yifei begins to fight with the men, and as he continues to fight, the lady begins to wonder the kind of man he is as he immediately looks like a strange human. Li Yifei begins to wonder where everyone is and immediately runs to the VIP section to check if anyone is there. He sees that no one is there and begins to wonder where they have all gone. He looks down from the VIP lounge and sees that they have all been captured, and he becomes very angry. Biffy notices some of the soldiers coming towards him and planning to surround him, but he immediately uses his djinns to take out the soldiers. One of the soldiers then throws a grenade at him, and he sees it and kicks it back to them. The rest of the soldiers begin to wonder what is going on, and their boss then orders one of them to go and check out what is going on. Yifei manages to take out the soldiers, and they notice that he is solid and begin to wonder where he is from. Yifei takes cover from the bullets, and one of the lead soldiers then asks him if he has come to save the ladies and calls him a piece of junk, making Yifei very angry. On the other hand, Lin pins down the assassin, and the assassin tells her that she is done for, and she suddenly sees a chainsaw coming out from the wall and attempts to cut her. Lin becomes surprised on seeing the Red Widow, and immediately she tells Lin that she has come to take revenge on her for what she did to her the last time. Lin sees that there are now 3 terrorists, and she begins to wonder if she will be able to handle them. She immediately calls Ak Kwan and tells him to leave immediately, but he ignores her and begins to ask himself what he should do. Jing yells at Ali that he should go home and meet his younger sisters while she continues to fight with the assassins. Then Ali watches for a moment, and when he sees that the fight is becoming more intense, then he begins to run for his life, as he tells Jing that it is his nature to run away from trouble, as this is not the first time he is running away, but he also apologizes to her as he runs away. After Ali had left, Jing continued to fight, but one of the assassins immediately catches her as she is trying to dodge all their attacks, even though she has been injured badly. On the other hand, Li Yifei stands behind a table to take cover for the bullets that are being fired at him, but one of the members of the gang gives the others instructions that they should head towards the left and surround Yifei. Then the leader of the gang tells Yifei that if he continues, he would be the one to suffer at the end, but on hearing that, Yifei becomes angry, and he immediately jumps out of his hiding as he yells at the leader of the gang that they are not the same person. The man begins to fight, and one of the members of the gang tells another that they should go, but before the man leaves, they all suddenly to see a fog, and they also notice a figure in the fog, which makes them curious on who or what is inside. Yifei suddenly arrives and asks them why they are not doing anything yet. They plan on retreating, but the boss sees that one of his soldiers is not exactly who he said he is, and he tells him that he is inferior, and if he wants to be his boss, he has to be tough enough. He then begins to kill the remaining soldiers. Yifei then grabs him and asks where his boss is, and he refuses to tell him. Yifei informs him that he will be able to find his boss even if he hides his location, but he tells Yifei to go to hell. Zen then comes in and hands Yifei his phone as he has an emergency. He is informed by Zhou Boyu that he has captured the betrayer that leaked their location and asks him to guess who it is. Yifei asks him who the person is and immediately tells Yifei that it's one of Miss Su's people. He then promises him to investigate it. Shanshan then runs to Yifei and asks him if he is okay, and immediately begins to cry. He tells her that he is okay and she should not worry about him. Miss Su looks at him and sees that the Yifei she knew is back. On the other hand, Jing is found by the sniper lady, and she is almost shot, but she is protected by Mr. Long, and he tells them not to scream at him as he is a real man. Long immediately remembers the day he was beaten because he only had a few $1,000s. He remembers that he bumped into them the day he wanted to Ying her present. He then goes to save the officer, and the assassin asks him if he is not afraid of a sniper's bullet. He then pours water on her, and she notices that it is water, and she becomes afraid due to the fact that she has a phobia for water. He pushes the nun and tells them that he will not run away like before, and the officer sees a chance and breaks her hands. She becomes angry and stabs the officer. She sees that she has been stabbed and begins to worry as she can no longer hold out. The Red Widow then draws out her chainsaw and sees that there is no one else to disturb her, but she is attacked by Long, and she beats him up and slams him to the ground. She matches his head and asks him what he said as she did not catch him, and Officer Lin then asks her why she has come back and begins to ask her if she does not feel guilt when she kills others. Long begins to cry as he sees that he cannot save anyone. The Red Widow then laughs at him and tells him that she will kill him. She tries to kill him, but Lin stops her by throwing the sword that has been on her chest to her, but she is defended by someone else who tells the widow that she is slow at capturing them. If you like this recap, do let me know in the comments, and obviously leave your likes too. Do not forget to share with your friends and subscribe. Above all, activate your notification bell so you don't miss the next recap when it drops. Until next time, do take care and stay safe.